Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Rough way to start. Anyways, guys, we're going to get right into it. So, 2 days, last 2 days trading. Um, I think we've won now 6 out of 7. We're up a little over $700 in 2 days, making 7 trades. And then, like I said, we've won 6 out of 7. So, it's been going really well. The strategy's been working so far since I started switching to the 1 hour time frame and planning out my trades basically the night before, doing a little bit of research in the morning to see if I think there'll still be stocks in play, but for the most part, I've been able to find ideal stocks the night before, look where I want them to go into the next day, and getting in if they come across those areas. So I'm going to walk you through what we're doing. Like I said, it seems to be working pretty well for us right now. So we'll go through the winning and one losing trade that we had, and I'll let you know the thought process on why we got into these trades. Hopefully, I can look back from Mondays originally and remember everything. I meant to do a video yesterday, got tied up, couldn't do it yesterday. So we're doing a 2-for-1 today. Typically, I'll do a video at the end of each day, but like I said, got tied up yesterday, so we're doing 2-for-1. So let's get right into it. Pull up our orders. We'll go ahead and look at today's. So today I only placed 2 trades today. Both of them ended up being winners. You'll see today on the day we were $357 positive for the day. These were the only 2 stocks we traded because they were the only 2 that came into the levels that I wanted to play in. All the other ones I had on my watch list, they didn't make it. So the best thing we could do, not try to force a trade. That's what we avoided doing today, and so it worked out well. We took the trades that were in our ideal areas, avoided all the rest, and like I said, 2 for 2 today, $357. We will take that all day long on 2 trades. The goal right now is to stay positive. So anything, if we're getting 300 plus in a day, then we're really happy with the results. So let's get into these trades. We'll start out with HCP. This was the larger win for the day. So let's get into that one first. And I got kind of screwed on this one because it wouldn't send my sell order through, so I lost about 8 cents. I should have been realistically about 125 on this one, but it would not send the trade through at the price, and then it ended up taking a big dip, about 6 cents. I ended up having to move my stop loss up basically to where it was to get it to push the sell through. I don't know what was going on, but anyways, paper trading right now, just disclaimer, we are still paper trading, testing out our strategy, making sure that we can successfully win with this strategy consistently. And once we have proven that we're doing it consistently and feeling pretty confident in the strategy over the course of the next few weeks, if we can continue to stay consistently positive, then we'll transition into our actual account and go live. So let's get into it. First trade of the day was HCP. We got in at 942 at a price of $24.99. So let's bring that one up and we'll show you the thought process on it. So there was 2 things that happened here. And again, I planned this all out the night before. I was looking for stocks in play from the night before, ones that had, higher relative volume in comparison on Friday. And I was looking at all this data. I'm pulling up, a 1 hour chart for 1 month. That's what I'm looking at. So we saw a big dip here. We saw that there was multiple times where it hit in this general area and had pretty good support in this general area. So we drew a rectangle out here. And this is where we were looking to get in at, somewhere around this area. And we did a really nice job of waiting patiently and getting in at $24.99. So down towards the bottom of this area. And the reason we were generally waiting for it to get this low is because of this dip down here. We saw that it did dip down all the way to $24.54, so I wanted to make sure I was only risking about 50 cents when I got in, and that way our risk to reward ratio was more favorable. I didn't want to get in somewhere, up here at 25-20, 25-30, because then my risk reward ratio is much smaller. So it's not an ideal situation. We're talking more like a 1-to-1 ratio rather than closer to a 2-to-1 ratio. And we want to try to avoid those as much as possible, especially when we're not sure, what kind of win rate percentage we're getting. Once we see our win rate percentage, we can tweak the ratio a little bit. But for now, we're trying to be more favorable, obviously, in that regard. So let's get into it. So I did have a trend line drawn here. Not the greatest trend line, I will admit this. So I wasn't really banking on the trend line so much here. Yes, I did kind of have one where I've got one drawn out. We do start to break above it. So I did like to see that. But the main thing I was looking at here was all this support in this general area. So that was my main factor of going into this trade. That's what I was mainly looking for when I got in. Yes, I kind of did have some little bit of a technical indicator where we are technically above the trend here. I really could have drawn this out differently even too. I could have really drawn it out more like this, right? Now, we do only have 2 touches here. It's not a great one. I was kind of forcing 3 touches here with this trend line. Again, this trend line was kind of iffy. I wouldn't necessarily say when you're drawing trend lines, that's one that I would necessarily go for. The big reason I jumped into this one was because of how many times we got down in this general area and we saw the nice support level here. So that was the main. This was more of a support and resistance level strategy than a trend line strategy. I'm kind of mixing the two, as well as maybe a few other things. I will also look at RSI from time to time and even VWAP from time to time, but I did not factor RSI or VWAP into this strategy. This was mostly going off of this support. So that was the main contributing reason why we got in. Like I said, we had it drawn out from this. We knew the general area we wanted to get in. My goal is to try to get in towards the lower end. I know I drew it all the way up here. It's really just for sight purposes to see, okay, we're getting in this area. I know that for me, I want to be in towards the bottom end of the area. And when I'm getting in and when I got in during this time frame, we were starting to see, we'll pull it up here. We were starting to see hammers, right? So we have a hammer where we're pulling up. We got another hammer where we're pulling up, another hammer where we're pulling up. And this is where we decided to get in at, because we're seeing a lot. We're seeing this support level holding, right? It's getting down to this general area like it had in the past, and it's pulling back up. It's dropping down, it's pulling back up. It's dropping down and pulling back up. And so when we're seeing that, it's telling us that buyers are really stopping it from. It's just an extra confirmation saying, okay, it is still holding this previous support area. Now, if these are staying red, if it's a larger red candlestick where you're not really getting this hammer action, you're getting more of a full engulfing red candle, bearish candle, you should say, then we may not look at getting in. I want to see these hammers. I want to see this resistance or support level that's pulling it back up. And when I see this, even though it's dropping on this next one, I still see, again, as it gets to this level, it's still seeing a lot of pull back up. And then we get into our next one. We get into our next one here where we start actually seeing ourselves go green. Now, I will admit, when I got in, it was not green yet. I was just pretty confident seeing these two hammers and seeing this general support area that, one, my risk was pretty low here. And I was pretty confident we were going to see an uptrend. And we'll see throughout the day. We did. I ended up selling my positions at my first half of my position. So I had 400 shares here. I sold the first half at 25.51. Technically, I had it set on a limit order to sell when it hit 25.50. Sold them at 25.51. So 52-cent gain on 200 shares there. So that was a very nice gain. That was a little over $100 on that. I was originally trying to get up all the way to 26, I decided as we started getting closer to market close that I dropped it down, and I dropped it down to $25.75 for the remainder of my 200 shares, which you'll see later in the day we got out there. So this ended up being a really great trade for the day. Our biggest trade of the day, $256 profit on that one. So this one was a really nice trade. It worked out exactly how we wanted to. I would have liked to have seen that trend line be a little more dependable, a little more consistent on that trend line. So again, this was more of resistance, more of watching the candlesticks, seeing that support level there really holding, and that is why we decided to get into that one. So that was the mindset on that trade. So let's get into our next one. EAT got in at 10.14. Got in at 10.14 at 35.53. So let's pull EAT up at 10.14. Okay, so might need to pull up the 3-month here, because I did have a 3-month trend line drawn here, which we didn't actually break the 3-month trend line. We are approaching it, which is really more, a little over a month. I did draw this trend line out though, because I was thinking about possibly getting in at that point, but that's not what we were originally going off of. Originally we were going off the previous support level. Let me go back to our 1 month, because we really didn't take into too much count. I mean, I did when I was looking back at the 3-month. I saw this area generally had, within this kind of relative area, we had some pretty good support, right? So we see support here, it comes up. We see support here again, we come up. Yes, we have a bit of a larger drop here, but that support brings it right back up. Drop again, the support brings it right back up. Drop again, support brings it right back up. In the same general area, a little bit lower, but relatively same area. So ideally, like I said, I wanted to get in towards the bottom end of where I was seeing. So this one, and you'll see where I drew out my rectangle to determine where I wanted to get in on the price. Now, I will admit I got in at this well above where I originally planned to get in. Ideally, and let me pull up our 1 month, 1 hour. Ideally, I would have got in right at the beginning of the market. I was just, again, pretty confident seeing the strong pull up here. Decided to go ahead and get in at 35.53 here. Now, I will admit, I set my stop loss on this very low for the most part. I was not risking too much on this. I think I was risking maybe $100 on this trade because I wasn't extremely confident, and I'll tell you why. Now, one of the things I did take into account is that we broke this previous resistance level, right? So this one had broken above that. So I was fairly confident that we were going to get somewhere around our next resistance level, which was, and we'll see that it did out at the day, got up to 36. And I'll tell you, originally I had it set to get out at 35.98. For whatever reason, it would not execute that trade, and I had to raise my stop loss all the way up to 35.98 just for it to make the sell. And as soon as I did that, it dropped down to 35.91. So realistically, I should have been out at somewhere around like 36.98 to 6.01 if it had executed the trade at market price like it should have. When it hit that mark, it didn't. By the time I got everything fixed and got my stop loss moved up to try to trick it into executing the trade, it took a big steep drop. So that was unfortunate because, like I said, it cost us about $25. Not a big deal, but was a bit of a nuisance. So yeah, I'll run you through kind of where we were at on this. So there was a couple factors that I took into consideration. I was looking at this trend line here, and I was looking at our break above this trend line. Now, ideally, I would have wanted to be in, on Friday. I didn't see this on Friday or Monday. Sorry, I didn't have this one on my watch list on Monday. So didn't see this on Monday. Had I seen it on Monday, I would have gotten in probably somewhere around right here at this 34.50 mark. But I would have gotten out before the end of the day. I'm trying not to hold anything through the after hours for specific reasons. One, especially on the paper money account, it doesn't do any trading after hours. So if it does this big tank after hours, I'm SOL in the morning. When it comes time, it'll just be a huge loss. So I'm always selling before the market closes. And honestly, that's my strategy plan. I don't plan on holding anything into the after hours unless I'm just extremely confident and I'm taking it more as a swing trade. But right now, from a day trading standpoint, I'm not going to be doing that. So I would have sold and got out. I might have considered, again, doing what I did today when I saw us break this previous resistance. I had a good feeling that, like I said, we were going to get back up somewhere towards our next resistance area, which was about right here. We saw it try to pull up and had that resistance, and that's when it continued its downtrend here. So the plan was get in at 30. I tried to get in around 35.50. By the time I got in, it was like 35.53. So I will say this was risk to reward ratio because I did give it a little bit of breathing room. I think I set it at 35 as my stop loss. So I was risking 50 cents a share. So I think I was risking 133 on this trade, basically to only make 133. So 1-to-1 ratio, not exactly ideal, but I was pretty confident we were going to continue to see an uptrend just because we broke our resistance areas, right? We broke this one, we broke this one. I was pretty confident with this strong bullish candlestick that we were going to at least see a decent profit. Again, I didn't think it was going to be anything major. That's why I set to get out at 35.98. And just an FYI, I usually always set to get out slightly before a major marker like 35.50 or 36, like a 50 number or a whole number. I usually set to get out slightly before then. What I've noticed in the past is a lot of people tend to get out on those even numbers. They love to get out and take their profit at 50. They love to get out and take their profit right on the dollar, right? And so what a lot of times you'll see is a lot of people have that tendency, and so then all of a sudden you see a big spike down once it hits that point. So I like to get out a little bit before then, just to try to avoid taking a big spike down if people are planning on taking their profits at that general area. And for the most part, I think a lot of day traders have similar strategies. So those take profit spots tend to be relatively in the same area. So I found being a little more conservative and taking a little less profit tends to work out in your favor more in the long run than trying to squeeze out and get a little more. So this was our general reasoning for getting into this one. Again, when we were originally looking at this one, our plan was to try to get in somewhere around this point because we saw, yes, we had a big drop here, but we saw it in general. This was a decent support area around this area. So obviously, if it had dropped in this area, we would have been looking for a hammer, some kind of bullish indicator that told us it was going to bounce and not do something crazy like drop right here. Obviously, you can't 100% guarantee that, but that's what we'd have looked for before we decided to get in. But since we didn't get that, we did see, and since it was on the watch list, we saw another opportunity to hop in. Not for anything crazy, but I was pretty confident that this one was going to at least ride up, 30 to 40 cents. And we ended up getting about 40 cents on it. By the time we got out, we should have got about 48, but neither here nor there. So this one was a win. That was the reasoning behind this trade. Those were our only two trades of the day. I didn't see anything else on my watch list today. Didn't really show any promises. They didn't hit the areas that I wanted to go into. I didn't really see any other opportunities with them. So rather than try to force a bad trade, I just called it a day at these two, let them ride, and it ended up being a decent day. So that being said, let's go and look at our previous days. Now I'm thinking about it. I don't know if today's trade activity. What if I don't want to see today's? What if I want to see we're here. Okay, well, I'll be honest, I haven't messed with this because I'm not able to trade on this at work, so I don't mess with this one a whole lot. So let's pull it up on here, and we'll take a look at yesterday's. So yesterday's pretty good trades yesterday. Again, yesterday was 4 for 5. And I might say 3 for 4 because one of them was a space holding from Friday. Didn't mean to hold it. I just got tied up into something and I couldn't get out of my position. But it would have been a win last week. We ended up making it a win. I'm going to avoid really going into that one today. I'm just going to stick to the ones that were actually planned out for Monday. Okay, so let's get into the first one. Victoria's Secret at 1720 at 836. So let's get into that one. At 826. We got in yesterday. So yeah, we got in at this general area. And so ideally, I did want to try to get in. If I had been a little more patient, I would have got in closer to my ideal area, which was about 17. I did kind of rush it during this candlestick, and I got in at 1720. Seeing this right here, seeing this bounce, I did go ahead and decide to get in because I thought it was starting its initial bounce, which it was, but we did end up having a little bit of a pullback. So had I been a little more patient, we could have really made a better profit on this one, but I wasn't real confident it was going to have a pullback down on that specific day. So we got in during this candlestick at 1720. By the time we ended up getting out, it was about 1740, if I remember correctly. Let's take a look. Let's see when we officially got out. Yeah, so in at 1720, out at 1740, and then I got stop lossed at 1735. Yeah, I start, and keep in mind, I start moving up my stop loss once I'm getting to certain levels. I kind of move it with the market. I'll bring it up to break even level. If it starts really climbing, I start bringing it up to take profit levels. Just to be safe, make sure I'm at least locking in some of my profits. It depends how high it's going up. I do take into account, give it some room for certain pullbacks, but that is something I do monitor throughout the day and kind of keep a close eye on. So yeah, got out on that one at 1720. Obviously, pretty good at that amount of shares. I think we had 1,000 shares, so 20 cents on that, and really we averaged closer to about 17.5. So it ended up being about $175 profit by the time we sold everything off. So that one was a pretty good trade. And again, our main reasoning behind this was we looked at past support levels that we had in this general area. And again, this was done on Tuesday, so this is Monday's here. Ignore this. Honestly, if I really been paying attention, I would have got in again on the morning here and got in and really had a nice day on it. I don't know why I didn't look at this one. I don't even think I had this one on my watch list. I did have it on my watch list, and for whatever reason, I missed it. I don't know if I just wasn't looking, or I caught it too late. I think someone walked in. Nope, that's what happened. This one I would have gotten in on. I saw it, but I had someone walk into my office. I couldn't get the trade put in for it because they were in my office talking to me, and it wasn't something I could turn away from. But yes, so I did want to get back in here. The plan was, if it fell back into this level again, I was going to be back in. And it did exactly that. We would have been in somewhere around this 17 area. That would have been the goal, especially after we saw this kind of hammering up. I would have tried to get in at 17, and that one would have been a nice ride up, a beautiful ride up. Within 1 hour, we would have made that one could have turned into about a $700 trade. So I'm upset that I didn't get that one. I am, however, happy that I recognized that I wanted to be back into this one. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to get in because I did leave this one on my watch list. It was being watched. I was waiting for it to get into this area. Again, I just didn't get a chance to put the trade in because I had someone in my office within the first 30 minutes this morning. So market opens up for my time at 8:30. I had someone come into my office literally at like 8:35, and they stayed there until about 8:55, and then at which case I had to go to a meeting at 9 o'clock that didn't get done until 9:30, and then I had to go to another meeting. So I didn't even get back to my office until about 10, which is when I really started to get. So I was very upset that I didn't get to get into this trade, but I was happy at the fact that my plan was to get into this trade, and so that would have been a huge profit for the day. But sometimes we're going to miss it. It is what it is. With my job, I'm not going to always be able to sit there, watch, and make trades when I want to, unfortunately. So, it's going to be a part of the daily life while I'm trying to do some form of day trading at work. There's only so much I can do. I can't sit there and watch it all day long. I make my plans ahead of time. I try to watch it, and have notifications on my phone that let me know, which I did get the notification on my phone. Like I said, I just could not place the trade. So I got a notification on my phone when it hit 17, which is what I set it to give me a notification at. I got the notification. I heard it. Couldn't do anything about it. But again, we know we would have taken that trade. That would have been the plan. Could have been a very profitable trade for us with very minimal risk. And that's would have been the ideal thing, is like we're only risking about 20 cents here, because I'm going to set my stop loss probably somewhere around 16.80 here. And we're going to be in probably around 17-ish. So we're risking about 20 cents a share. So out of 1,000 shares, we're risking $200, which that's my number. I'm never risking more than $200 on one trade. That's the number I've got right now with the size of the account I plan on using. But anyways, I just wanted to go over that one a little bit because we did have a win on it yesterday, but we could have had a really big win on it today. It was just an unfortunate circumstance where I couldn't really do anything about it. So let's go back to transaction history. And let's look at and honestly, this video is starting to get a little bit long. I think I'm just going to touch base on one more. And then I'll call this over for now, just because this video is getting long. This is why I typically like to do it one day at a time, because the trades start to really go over them and give the detail of it. It tends to start making it lengthy when there's too many trades, and so when I'm trying to do going over seven in a 30-minute time frame, it's a little hard to squeeze them all in. So we'll go over one more. So let's go over a loss, just because seeing losses, I think, tends to be more useful than seeing the wins. So seeing the losses helps you understand what you did wrong. Did you do anything wrong in your opinion, or is this just, it was an unfortunate? You're going to lose some. There's no doubt. It's not 100% that you're going to win. The main thing is either you set a more favorable risk-reward ratio, or you have a higher win percentage. You got to have one of those things. If say your risk-reward is going to be around the same, then you need a higher win percentage, right? Because every time you lose, you're losing as much as you're gaining on your wins. So you have to win more in order to stay profitable. Now, if you have a higher reward ratio than your risk, you can afford to lose a little bit more, because on your wins, you're getting more. So just something to keep in mind. For me, personally, I don't go for anything too crazy. I do look for good opportunities on risk reward, but I don't usually go anything too crazy. I very rarely even look or find trades. If I'm being real honest, I very rarely find trades that I'm willing to sit in that are better than a 2-to-1. Most of mine are probably somewhere between like 1.3 to 1.7 on the ratio of reward to risk. So it's like a 1.3 to 1 or a 1.7 to 1, somewhere generally in that range. I find if you try to really stretch it out above that, crazy things tend to happen. It feels like you're being a little greedy, trying to get as much out of one trade as possible. There's nothing wrong with setting and maybe selling half your position and then moving up your stop loss to a better area, so that, if it does start to break the trend of going upwards, or whatever trend, if you're shorting, if it's breaking the trend you're following, my idea is that you should be moving your stop loss as the market continues to move up. So if you want to sell half your position, that's fine. Sell half your position, keep half your position, and try to ride it further. But your stop loss should be moving up with those levels, so that way your stop loss eventually comes to a point where, one, you don't lose money at the very least. So if it does drop all the way back down, you're not going to lose anything. You're still going to take those profits from that first half of your position that you sold. And then ideally, if it's really moving up a decent amount, depending on how it's moving, it's very circumstantial. There's different judgments that everyone's going to make on it. But personally, if it's moved up a decent enough amount, I usually will bring it above to another take profit area that's relatively a little bit lower than my initial take profit, because I do try to give it a little room for some pullback, because you do expect to have some pullback, but I don't want to see anything too crazy. So eventually I'll try to give some live examples. We're going to be doing some trading from home at some point, so I'll have some live videos where we can go over and I can kind of discuss that in further detail. But anyways, let's go over our loss on Dish. This was one that I got in at 598, ended up losing. Did we get in at 598? I believe it was 603 actually. Yeah. So this one was actually a little bit of a rough loss. We lost 130 on this one. Not that big a deal. Again, that's kind of in our range. I'm willing to risk up to 200 on any single trade, but we'll go over this one. So we got in on Dish at 839 at 603. Let's see if we can find out why we did that. And again, this was on Monday, so let's take a look at Monday. I'm going to just pull it up on this because it'll be easier to tell. So Monday, we got in at 603. A little bit impatient on this one. We got in, this was Monday here. So yeah, I was feeling like this general area was going to end up being a support. And so here's where the big problem, and I think one of the main reasons we lost on this one. One, I was using basically one bounce as my idea of a support level. Now, ideally, you want to see at least two bounces off a support level. So if I see it here, I want to see it somewhere again along these lines. And so I did see that we were having some support in this general area, but it's still not really where I wanted it to be. And so again, I kind of saw where we had some support in this general area, it bounced back up. But this one I hopped in a little soon. Now, we'll see if I'd hopped into it today, it would have been an extremely profitable trade. I think it got up to, like 660 at some point today, maybe just below. So had an opportunity here, and this one actually would have been a decent one. I think had I seen this one, and I just didn't even see this one, I'll be honest. I didn't even see this one this morning. I saw it later in the day. But had I seen this hammer and started seeing this bullish candlestick, I probably would have been pretty tempted to get in within this 30 minutes. Again, I wasn't going to be able to see it. So definitely would have been one I would have considered, though. And had I drawn a new trend line here, and realistically, I'm still happy with the trend line that I had. This trend line here, I'm still happy with it. We're above the trend line here, so I don't have any problem getting in at this point. We're seeing it consolidate. We're seeing that we have this support in this general area. So I would have wanted to try to get into this area on this initial drop here in this first 30 minutes from 8 to 9. So 8:30 when the market opened, I would have wanted to really try to get in this area had I been able to see it. I didn't get to see it. I like the trend line that we had. I do see we got support there. Now we're starting to get a little bit of backbone to the support level here too, because we're seeing, okay, it's pulling back up. Okay, it's pulling back up. Okay, it's still pulling back up. It's rejecting going lower from this general area. And again, it's right lined up with where we had a previous support level in the past. Yes, it's several weeks ago, or 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. But still, it's been an area of support multiple times now. At this point, I would have been pretty comfortable getting into this trade, especially even if I don't get in towards this level here. we see I had my rectangle drawn out, ready to get in. Even if I didn't get in at this area, which I really think I would have wanted to, because the risk, I wouldn't have risked very much on this. I would have been happy to get in at 590 and set 580 as my stop loss, and risk 10 cents a share there for a very sizable jump up, because our previous resistance was about 50 cents up, which is what we would have been going for, is towards our previous resistance area here. So it could have been a very profitable trade. It's unfortunate I didn't get to see it, but this was a loss that we had from the day before. Just keep in mind, we didn't have our trend line broken yet. We were a little too jumpy getting into this. We should have waited for some signals like this hammer. Seeing this hammer here and getting more into our box area like we want to be. Seeing this hammer here though, and then seeing a green indicator, now we want to think about jumping in and setting our stop loss right below this one right here, probably slightly below, around 580. Give it a little room to breathe there. If we wait for this indicator and get in here, we don't have this drop here that ended up stopping us out from the day before. So we see what we did wrong. I don't think it was a horrible trade. It was just the timing of the trade. We should have waited for some confirmation here. I think we had the right idea of when we wanted to get in. We just didn't. We were impatient. We jumped in a little too soon, and it cost us. And again, missed opportunity here this morning, but we had the idea. We knew what we wanted to do. So some positives there to take away. So anyways, guys, we're done for this one, because this has been an extremely long video, 37 minutes by the time this is said and done. So anyways, guys, I'm going to be back with another video tomorrow. We'll go over wins and possible losses tomorrow. Hopefully not very many losses, hopefully a lot more wins. But we're going to be doing this daily. We're going to continue going over why we're making these trades, the thought process, and eventually I'll start going into making some videos of how I'm going about prepping the night before, on what items I'm looking for, how I'm going about setting my trend lines, how I'm deciding where my entries are going to be, where my exits are going to be. Because like I said, mostly I'm having all of that planned out the night before. I do monitor the market slightly in the pre-market, but most of it is just planned out ahead of time the night before. So we will get into that. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for me. If you enjoyed the video, I appreciate anyone dropping a like, hitting a sub if you want to see more. So we'll catch you next time, guys.